All right. Welcome back to the Unstuck Movement, True Testimonies of Breakthrough. I am your host, Rob Z. Today we have the incredible, the powerful Alan Lazaros with us on the podcast. Alan, am I saying your last name right? I didn't even ask beforehand if that's how you say
Don't
it.
don't even stress. It's Lazarus, but it's spelt
Ah,
with an OS. So most people say Lazaros, and the world does not revolve around my last name. We are good, I promise.
but your last name being Lazarus is kind of amazing considering your story that we're going to dive into. I don't know if you know the story of Lazarus, but wow. Okay, so I love to jump in right off the bat with a powerful question. When you were 26 years old, you were in a near fatal car accident, nearly took your life. It actually was the turning point for your life. How did your life turn around from that near fatal accident?
So the shortest possible version, and I can go far deeper if you'd like, is I got to provide context first. So first and foremost, thank you for having me. I want to start with gratitude. I like to sandwich everything that's aligned in gratitude. That's kind of my thing. I'll be grateful at the end and grateful at the beginning. I think that's really important. So thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I don't take
Absolutely.
that lightly. Speaking into someone's life, so important. The context that I need to provide before we talk about the car accident is my father passed away in a car when he was 28. So for me, and I was two. This was back in 1991. I was born in 88, so I was 2.5. And I had a stepfather from age 3 to 14. My stepfather was Steve Lazarus. My birth father was John McCorkle. And stepfather left at 14. I sort of rose in corporate, and I can give the more in-depth story. But when my stepfather left, he took 90% of the income with him, and I wanted to go to WPI, Worcester Polytechnic Institute. It's like a mini MIT in Massachusetts. I know you're in Pennsylvania. And it's an engineering school, essentially, one of the best engineering colleges in the world, but it's 50 grand a year. This is back then. So I went from I hope I get in to I don't even know if I'm going to be able to go if I do get in because we don't have the money. So bootstrapped through high school, scholarships and financial aid, fortunately, straight A's. Got to go to college, engineering, computer engineering, and then master's in business, rose in corporate. And then I'm 26 and I get in my car accident. And this was not a fender bender. I'm on the wrong side of the road, my fault. Dark winter night 2015 up in New Hampshire. And I was supposed to yield and I didn't. And I look down at the GPS, I look up, biggest, brightest lights I'd ever seen, right in front of me. And this is it. This is it. This is the end. Fortunately, I was driving a 2004 Volkswagen Passat that I bought in 5 grand cash. Back then, I thought success externally, as we talked about off air, was going to be what made things work. Because when my stepdad left, we didn't have a lot of money. So I thought, okay, I'll get wealthy. So I bought this car in cash and I invested all my money. Paid off 84 grand worth of college debt in a single year back in 2014. Rose in corporate 65 to 85, 85 to 105, 105 to 125, 125 to almost 200 for a company called Cognex. I sold industrial automation equipment into manufacturing facilities. My territory was Vermont, Connecticut, and Western Mass. And so I did very, very well. I was a top 1% earner globally. But this is post 2008. This is 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014. 2015 was the car accident. So my corporate career was short in hindsight, but I rose very quickly when the economy started coming back because automation was just booming. And so anyways, I invested all my money, 150 grand in a Vanguard account, tech companies that I knew would win. And I say no in quotes because no one really knows, but I had a good inkling because I'd been in tech. I was mining for Bitcoin with my roommates back in 2007, 2008 in college, that kind of thing. So just a techie. But anyway, so I get in the car accident, and it was sort of my quarter life existential crisis where I questioned absolutely everything. And before that, I hadn't done any therapy. Before that, I was externally achievement oriented. I was externally successful. I was definitely improvement oriented. I was definitely academic and professionally developed. Resume, cover letter, LinkedIn, bachelor's, master's. But I wasn't personally developed.
Mhm.
I wasn't focused on self-improvement, personal growth, personal development. And so I flipped the script. I went from externally successful and internally unfulfilled to internally super fulfilled, happy, healthy, productive. Every book I can get my hands on, self-improvement, personal development, personal growth, fitness model, fitness competitor, fitness coach. But I was kind of broke. I liquidated all my assets. I bought courses and books and Started my own company, Alan Lazaros LLC, what you'll never learn in school but desperately need to know. This is 10 years ago. And I wanted to bring personal development to the school systems, which I was an inspirational, motivational, educational speaker, and good luck getting into schools with that tagline, right? And so that was 10 years ago. I started mentoring and coaching, mentoring 10 years ago, getting paid 8 years ago. And now I have Next Level University, and I'm a business coach and all that stuff. But ultimately, what changed my life was I used to be focused at external achievement at the expense of internal fulfillment without knowing it. Mm. And then I went past broke, liquidated all my assets, ended up internally fulfilled, but externally unsuccessful, so I can't sustain it. And now I'm finally in my 30s in a place. I'm 36 as of November last year. 10 years ago was my car accident. I'm finally in a place where I can authentically look in the mirror and say, okay, I'm externally successful and internally fulfilled, and I want my future to be an amplified version of what it already is. And right now my main focus is coaching, training, and podcasting, and I coach over 35 people if you include my team. And it's definitely the work I'm meant to do, but it's both externally rewarding in terms of finances, business coach, but also internally fulfilling because it's aligned with my core values and what I think I'm meant to do in the world. And I think that's ultimately where we all want to get, is that last sort of bucket of externally successful and internally fulfilled. And we all try to get there through our own sort of messy process.
Yeah, very true, man. And first of all, that the accident and the change that came after that is by no stretch of the imagination just by chance, right? That you had such a change in you from that happening, and life wakes us up sometimes. Life will wake us up, and not saying that it was good that it happened to you, but also it puts you on a new path and redirects your focus. So I love that. It's really powerful. And, like you had said also, and I talk about this all the time on the podcast, we many times in life can be really successful at something, but it's actually draining us. It's not where we're supposed to be. And it's slowly killing us in certain ways. I've been there for sure. And
Can you hear the garbage truck outside? I apologize.
No, I couldn't. But okay. Are you trying to tell me something? Taking the trash out. You gotta.
Yeah. There's the garbage truck is right outside. So if my audio is not good, I apologize.
No, I can't hear it. But I think it's important taking the trash out in life, right? Because sometimes we have to take the trash out before we can put good stuff in. And that is a constant, at least throughout my life, man. The bad things had to come out. And sometimes I didn't even know the bad things were there. And I think that's what you kind of said a minute ago, is like you were being externally successful, but internally you weren't. But you didn't even realize it. You didn't know that was a thing, right? You didn't know that was the issue. So before we go any further, I just want to welcome people. The Unstuck movement was created so you could find breakthrough in your life. If you're watching or listening right now, this platform is to help you break the chains that are holding you back by having examples of people who have gone through incredible things and have had those major breakthroughs in their life. We're sponsored by the Connected Leaders Academy. Check out connectedleadersacademy.com. Over 450 heart-centered servant leader entrepreneurs all over the world who serve each other. And also, I want to encourage anybody who's watching or listening right now, if you feel you are the expert at what you do, but you want to be the go-to authority in your space, you want to build a platform that leaves a lasting impact on people's lives and brings incredible connections into your life, like this connection happening right now, I encourage you to launch your own platform. I'd love to help you do that with the Pro Podcaster Academy. You can join the waitlist at robzwentz.com. Alan Lazaros with us today is the CEO of the Global Top 100 podcast, Next Level University, with over 1,800 episodes and listeners in 170 plus countries. After surviving a near fatal car accident, he transformed his life and now empowers others in life, love, health, and wealth. So after that accident, man, right? And you said you didn't realize necessarily that you were missing something in your life. How clear was it for you in like a practical sense? How clear was it? Oh, I need to change things. And here's where the change started to happen.
So the car accident, because my father passed away in a car when he was 28, I was 26 at the time. It was very obvious that I had to change. Sometimes we don't change in life until the pain is great enough, unfortunately. And for me, the pain of regret. So I ended up, it's not a coincidence that I found a book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying by a woman named Bronnie Ware. Have you ever heard of that book?
I know, I have not.
Okay, so she's a woman from Australia. Her name's Bronnie Ware, and I actually have these tattered old flashcards that I used to carry around all the time. Now they're in my office. But The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying is a book by her, and we actually got to interview her 4 years later, which was really cool. I fanboyed hard on that interview. But that book really changed my life. And so I got in a car accident, and it was not a fender bender. Like I said, I could have easily died. Luckily, I was in a very safe car, and luckily it was not a Mack truck, which I thought it was. It was a lift-kitted pickup truck, and both airbags did deploy, even though it was an older car, so I'm very grateful. But I really, had a lot of regret. It was, who am I? And, some people have a job, some people have a career, some people have a calling. I feel like I found my calling, personal development, self-improvement, health, wealth, life, and love, after the car accident. And this book by Bronnie Ware, she worked in hospice for 8 years with the terminally ill, and she wrote a book about it because she realized that she noticed a pattern of regret. And I'm big on patterns. I'm an engineer, so everything's anomalies and patterns for me. And I was in regret of a lot of my choices. I didn't realize how autopilot I was, and of course you don't until you're off of it, right? And a lot of people are still on autopilot, so hopefully we can unstuck everybody here listening, and I'm assuming the people listening to your show are probably not on autopilot because they wouldn't be listening otherwise. But the number one regret of the dying is I wish I had lived a life true to myself and not what others expected of me. And there's four others. I'll share them here briefly. This is Bronnie's work, not mine. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I actually got to ask Bronnie, isn't that because of number one, though? And she's like, that makes a lot of sense, Alan. I was like, nice. Because I don't feel like I'm going to regret hard work now, but I think a lot of people regret working so hard because they actually aren't aligned with their purpose and their passion and their calling and that kind of thing. The third one, this is a big one for me. I wish I had the courage to express my true feelings. So this version of me at 36, I'm courageous enough to share all this stuff. My father passing away, my stepdad leave. Like when I was younger, when I was in my early 20s, I didn't talk about my dad at all. Mm-hmm. And so you have to kind of go back and face your past. And for some people, they're reluctant about the future, not the past. For me, I was all about the future, of course. My past was painful, so let me just build the future. And so I was this sort of super achiever, weirdo guy. But the fourth one is I wish I stayed in touch with my friends. And then the fifth is I wish I had allowed myself to be happier. And this is an old, tattered sort of flashcard from back in 2018. But anyways, so the process was really messy, and I'll just kind of share this briefly. There's post-traumatic growth and there's post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. I had PTSD to an extent after the car accident, and I do know that's true. I was claustrophobic. I had to puff my chest and kind of walk in and out of doors to try to overcome it. Crowds bothered me. I kept getting pulled over because I was so far on the right side of the road because I had crossed the double yellows when I got in the head-on collision, my fault. So getting back in a car was really hard for me. I definitely had some issues I had to work through for sure. However, the post-traumatic growth was tremendous. I mean, it was just like the best way I can describe it is my ego was gone. Everything I thought I was just sort of burnt to the ground, metaphorical phoenix from the ashes type of thing. And ultimately, who you think you are is controlling who you're going to be a lot more than we realize. And that's obvious now as a coach of 35 individuals that I coach from all over the world. And it's been hundreds over the years and thousands of calls. I have a 10,000 hour tracker. I'm almost past 10,000 hours of this. So this is all different individuals, all different cultures, all different backgrounds, all this stuff. And that's my main thing is coaching. And so what you learn is, I'm an engineer, so I was goals, metrics, habits, priorities, skills. Yeah, all true. The last one's identity. And that's always the big unlock. And that's the unstuck part. So you are stuck in a current identity. I am too. And it's either limiting you, it's gotten you to a certain level, and there's another level. And you have to evolve your identity in order to get to that next level, most likely. And that's going to usually happen through pain, emotional and mental pain. And so for me, I got all the feedback all at once, car accident, and I just reassessed my entire existence. And that was 10 years ago. And so I reinvented myself. And obviously there's been a bunch of those throughout. That's just the biggest one. 14, when my stepdad left, was a big one. And then 26, car accident, that was a big one. But I've had many more over time. And now I do therapy. And so every single therapy session is kind of a reinvent myself type of moment. And I think every day is an opportunity to do that. But unfortunately, we all get caught on autopilot. And that autopilot might suck, to be completely honest. And I think it's hard for us to look at how bad we are at things. Like, I had to look at every inadequacy I have. And I was pretty good at a lot of stuff, but I wasn't good at vulnerability. I didn't even know what vulnerability meant, right? So it's the stuff that we don't want to look at where all the gold is buried. It's if what you wanted was what you needed, you'd already have it. So clients come to me and I give them what they want, what they think they want, which is growth in their business. What they really need is nonviolent communication and vulnerability and humility and courage. And you're actually quite the coward, but you don't want to admit that. So it's all this stuff. Like, I was a coward. I just didn't know I was a coward because I was professionally not a coward. I was socially a coward. But a lot of people don't know that they're cowardly. I didn't identify as cowardly. Everyone else thought I was courageous, but they didn't realize that I was actually dialing down so much around people.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you're cowardly and being vulnerable and open with yourself and facing your past, your ego, right, is going to do everything that it can to block you from facing that. So it's going to project this version of you that's very courageous, just to like kind of hide from that, if that's what's going on in your life. And I think that's really important, man. It can be incredibly difficult to dig into ourselves and the things we don't want to look at. But you're right. That's where the biggest growth is. And it's so true that, you know, when you have a scar, right, that part of your skin is stronger than the rest of your skin where the scar was placed, right? So that, to me, is just a metaphor for the painful emotional things that we go through. If you don't get through them, then you're going to leave an open wound in your life that's constantly being poked forever. But if you get through the thing, when you get through the thing, that becomes your strongest point. That becomes something it becomes a superpower. And I really love that. I love also talking about identity. We just had this discussion on the last episode. It's really true. Like, when your identity is so wrapped up in something and that something is taken away from you, man, at least I went through a period of just, I'm not even quite sure. I was 20 years in radio broadcasting, right? So when I came out of that, I did not know who I was for a period of time. And it was a wilderness season of my life where I had to kind of just come to terms with it, it hurt a lot. It was painful, but it started to teach me, oh, this is actually who I really am. I'm not this person because for a long time, I was somebody that I was trying to be somebody, and that person was who I thought other people thought that I was, instead of who I actually am. And that can be even saying that's super confusing. So it can be super confusing going through that journey. And I really like how you said, well, okay, actually, I want to mention this for a second, because sometimes you have to get far enough away from the things in your life that have happened to face them, you know? And so I'm curious for you, because you said you've gone through this a couple of different times in your life. Obviously, the car accident was the big one, but sometimes you've got to get far enough away from something so you can see it clearly, to see like the hindsight 2020 kind of deal. Have you been able to collapse that in your life where you don't have to get so far away from it to see it?
Well, when you say collapse, this is a really cool framework that we teach at NLU. And my girlfriend's actually the main one who came up with this. She calls it the secondary, tertiary, and primary truth, but we changed it to the 3 circles of the ego. And we both have companies where we teach personal development, so we share each other's stuff. But ultimately, the 3 layers of the ego, I think it's really powerful. It's the outer circle, so 3 circles. The outer circle is who you want others to believe you are. That's your persona. That's your high school is a good example. I gave a speech once to a group of high school kids. It was 1,200 kids in a single day. And the reason I say that is because it was so fascinating. We had the 7th and 8th graders, then the 9th and 10th, then the 11th and 12th. Same speech, growth mindset, perseverance, long-term career stuff. We got better and the response got worse. So it broke my brain. Ego. The juniors and seniors might as well have been making fun of us, right? The first performance was rusty, first in the day. And then the second one so 7th and 8th graders went really well, but I thought we sucked. All right. And we're back in the back, Kevin and I. Kevin's been on your show.
Yeah.
And we're in the back going, okay, good start. Let's get better. Here's what we're going to improve. Then it's what is it, ninth and 10th graders, so freshmen and sophomores, and that went worse. But I thought we performed better, which broke my brain. Then the last one, I thought we performed awesome, and it went horribly because the juniors and seniors were just not into it. Mm-hmm. Self-improvement isn't cool, right? Got it. The development of the ego. Because when you're a junior and senior, you have this facade to put on. So the outer circle is your facade. It's your persona. It's what you want others to believe you are. The next layer in is who you want to believe you are. This is the story you tell yourself about yourself. So I was not a strong communicator. I told myself I was, when in reality, I'm actually an engineer with a math modality of thinking, and everyone doesn't understand a word I'm saying. Yeah. And I had to face the fact that I suck in order to actually get better. That's the irony, the paradox of life. Yeah. And then the inner circle is who you really are. So you've got who you want others to believe you are, who you want to believe you are, and then who you really are. The car accident for me collapsed it all to one circle. Mm. And now I've worked every day since, literally and figuratively, trying to keep those circles the same. And some people think they're worse than they are. Some people think they're better than they are. But we're all inaccurate. It's just to what extent. Yeah. And the extent to which you're inaccurate about yourself is the size of your ego. And so a lot of times, guys, I don't trigger you that much, which is nice. But like a lot of guys who have huge egos, who think they're really confident, I trigger them a lot because I'm actually confident. And I would have triggered past self too, so I get it. But like, basically that's what is happening is pain and suffering, unfortunately, things being taken away, to your point, is usually when we collapse our ego, aka our identity gets questioned, which is existentially challenging. However, it's also how you grow. So when you watch Netflix, you see, your superheroes do these things, and heroes, character, victim, villain, hero, guide, hero's journey, all great. But you're simulating that. You're not actually growing. There's no risk to you. And so Netflix and Disney Plus and all this stuff, and I love film, so I'm not against this by any means, but you're not actually growing. You're simulating growth. You're simulating these experiences. You're simulating these characters' development. And what we actually need to do, which is way harder, is actually look at ourselves, right? And that's sort of our own hero's journey, so to speak, and victim, villain, hero, guide type of thing. And I think we all become sort of guides eventually if we're on a growth journey. But a lot of people are not. And that's why they're unfulfilled. I always say, like, you can be externally successful without growing. You can. I did a lot of that, right? You cannot be internally fulfilled without growing. You can't. And I'm convinced of that. And that's why most people are one or the other. I know some people wildly fulfilled, happy, healthy, productive. Behind the scenes, their lives are great, but no one thinks they're successful, and they don't make a lot of money. And then I know some people who make a boatload of money, and they're emotional children playing video games while their wife cooks. And I'm not making any of that wrong. I'm just saying, like, how do we become professionally developed and personally developed? Because professional development is usually what creates success in the economy. Personal development is usually what creates fulfillment in your real life, and your real marriage, and your real relationships. And unfortunately, we're all good at one or the other typically.
Yeah, man. And if you look at society, why is our society having so many problems? Because we focus so much on the external success and use that as the marker for how people find happiness and joy and fulfillment. And that's not it. So people get to that level and they build a lot of great things, but they're actually, I shouldn't say they're all the worst kind of people, because that's not true. But the more inner work that happens, the more, like you said, I really liked how you said that earlier. You have just a confidence. It's not arrogance. You're not trying to show off. You're just confident because you know who you are. And I have to assume, I want to ask you this, but I would imagine it's because you keep promises to yourself. It's all about integrity, and integrity is my top value, right? So I was not integrous, man. If you go back in time, I never kept any promises to myself. I hated myself, and it was really hard to be around me because of how miserable I was. Now, you wouldn't see this on the outside, but if you live with me, ask my first wife, you would know there was no integrity there. And so what I've learned over time is if I needed to have self-worth, I needed to build my self-esteem. And the only way I found to do that was I had to keep the promises to myself that I said I was going to do. And you might say, well, how do I know that's the right thing to do? Well, inside, you know what the right thing is, and you know what you need, especially with the most basic things in life. Like, you know what the right thing is to do, and you know you keep telling yourself, hey, you need to do this, and you don't keep doing it, you're going to get worse, and you're going to drag people down with you in that. But if you keep the promises to yourself, you build that integrity, you build a confidence that's unshakable because you know who you are. You don't need anybody on the outside to confirm this is who I am. I don't need money to confirm this is me or success, because I know me. And that's a beautiful place to get to. I'm curious, do you agree with that?
Yeah, deeply. And it's who you are and what you are when no one's watching that
Yeah.
is what matters. And keeping the promises, I always say this, and this is how aligned I am with that. Alignment, integrity, same thing. High Road. There's a book called High Road Leadership that John Maxwell wrote.
I say his best book, man. It's his newest book, and it is phenomenal.
High Road Leadership. I love High Road Leadership because I love the concept. I actually don't know how much I love the book, but I love the concept because we all know what the high road is. Every day, in every way, we all have that higher road. Virtue is universal. Compassion's a virtue. Curiosity is a virtue. Greed is a vice. Always. These are universal. It doesn't matter where you came from.
Yeah.
And if you are not a virtuous human, you will pay for it in shame and just. We all know that it's fulfilling to make love to someone you love, and it's like wildly pleasurable but unfulfilling to, have a one-night stand. We've all understood that intuitively as human beings. And so to me, I always say this, if you had a friend who broke as many promises to you as you've broken to yourself, how much would you value that friendship?
Yeah, you would not be able to stand that person.
Exactly. And then unfortunately,
but when you break your own promises to you, you've got to live with you. So now you've got a roommate that you hate.
Yes, and and then now you actually have a roommate who also hates you too. No, I'm kidding. But like, it really is. It's tough, and that's the self-discipline piece. Because people say, oh, well, self-discipline doesn't work and all this stuff. It's like, listen, what is self-discipline? It's taking the high road when it's easier to take the low one.
Yeah.
And no one does 100% high road, right? There are no, like, I ate pizza last night. What are we doing here? I'm not trying to be perfect. And I used to be, and all that. I'm not doing that. What I would say is that are you consistently and sustainably bettering your best? And can you be proud of the time and effort you're putting into developing yourself as a human being? Because if you really do care about self-love, that means that you care about self-discipline and self-respect and self-worth and self-belief. And you have to build these things. You can't manufacture them. They have to be organically built from the ground up. And I remember there was this, when I was younger, I was in college, I was a sophomore. I was this super smart guy, but like drinking too much and too often, tough childhood, not facing my past, this kind of stuff. Stepdad left, all that. And I was in college, and there was this guy named Matt. And I went back to my hometown to party, and he was this stud, right? Just jacked, good looking, charismatic, nice guy. Dude checked every box. And I remember being around him, and I had to go away. Now, I never attacked. I was never a bully, but I had to go. I was like, I got to get away from this guy. And I went
he's too perfect at everything. I know those kind of guys. Yeah, it's like,
he's got the beautiful girlfriend, right? His family is like fairly wealthy. He's got a place down the Cape. He's just a good dude. And I still, to this day, big fan. And this is why it's so fascinating. I went into the corner of the basement. We were partying in a basement at the time, and one of my best friends at the time came over to me because he could sense that I was off, and he's like, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No, man." And I just contemplated. It's the elbows on the knees moment of contemplation. Like, I have got to get it together. And the truth is, Matt could have internalized that as I don't like him. And by the way, after my car accident, I started fitness model, fitness competitor, fitness coach, fitness competitions. I mean, I became all about self-improvement, and I thought that people would like me more. That was no, not at all. Like, people don't like me at all. Like, what the hell is going on, right? I thought if I became a better person, that at least before, when people were bullying me, at least it made sense because I was, there was things to point at that were not ideal. I drank too much, all this stuff. Now it's like, I'm like helping kids on the weekend with my charity, and you're shitting on me. Like, what is the deal? Now I understand. It's people don't hate you, they hate themselves. And I did too back then. And so it wasn't until 10 years later when I became, this guy, fitness model, fitness, all the stuff. And I'm 29, and I just won a fitness show, and I'm in the best shape of my life, and I'm at this wedding, and I run into Matt. And Matt's smoking a cigar outside with his buddies, and he's like, dude, and he was the man. He was so nice. He's like, dude, those competitions you're doing, holy crap. Like, I'm blown away by you. Like, I could never do that. And I was like, brother, first of all, you could step on stage right now and win. This dude's jacked, right? But also, I had this moment of, oh my goodness, you were my freaking hero and you didn't even know it. And now I'm inspiring you so much. Like, what a flip that is, right?
Yeah.
Because he was the guy. I mean, this dude put me to shame back then. And then I had this moment of he actually doesn't believe in himself as much as I thought. And I've become so much more than what I was back then. And honestly, I quit drinking for a while after that moment with him, and I went back to it all stuff, but I've been sober now for over 5 years. But the point is like he got me contemplating myself through his own greatness. And when I do this with guys in particular, I think girls tend to compare unconsciously to girls and guys tend to compare unconsciously to guys. So there's some guys with huge egos that like really don't like me. And I think deep down they need to contemplate their own life and their own, their own value and their own confidence and their own self-discipline. When ultimately, what it comes down to is people who are not aligned, they will misalign you if you're not careful.
Yeah. And when you're not, I mean, it's such an obvious thing now in my life, but when I was younger, and even now it still happens to me, especially with guys that I deem to be, here's what it is for me. Like you were saying, if I meet somebody who truly knows who they are, I get intimidated by that. And I'm like, I don't know if I can be around this person because they are so who they are. And so throughout my life, my biggest struggle has been not knowing who I was and having to learn, like, who did God create me to be? Who was I created to be? I need to know, because I need to be that person, because I feel a disconnect because I'm not being that person. And so I would oftentimes, if I was around somebody, they didn't even need to be super confident. They just had to be like themselves. If they were just them and like unabashedly them, I was like, I can't be around this person because it's freaking me out, which is hilarious.
And then if you had to run away, for lack of better phrasing, like I did with Matt, the other Matt would internalize that maybe, and the core wound there is quote unquote unlovable.
Right.
And it wasn't until I became greater and greater and greater, because I used to be a skinny mini, tall, lanky, prepubescent. I mean, no girls, like just loser, right? So I wasn't intimidating. I was really smart, but I was not physically intimidating. And then I went to 220, muscle, fitness competition guy, and all of a sudden people treated me way worse. And I was like, What is the deal? I now understand that the core wound of unlovable is based on the fact that people who are insecure around you, they act really weird. They either ego up and bully you, which happened a lot, or they run away. And if all you really care about is connecting with people and trying to help and add value and change the world, like you just become this like, what the hell is going on? So I cried for like 2 or 3 years after that car accident because all my friends were so cruel to me. Not all of them. A lot of my friends were so cruel to me. And now I realize it has nothing to do with me. It has to do with I had a lot of friends who are very misaligned. They're not living in alignment with their own growth and calling. And I was just a very big mirror. And I understand now that that's my purpose.
What a strength though, man, because you can now help to break down those barriers for people. You can help break down that barrier for somebody who feels like they wouldn't be able to approach somebody like yourself, and they find out who you actually are. And they're like, I love when somebody has a misconception of you and you can disprove that misconception and they can see who you actually are. That is a beautiful skill to be able to have. And I should have taken a break here about 15 minutes ago, but I'm loving the conversation so much I didn't. So we're going to take just a minute to shout out the sponsor of the podcast. When we come back, though, I want to talk about, before we started this episode, we were talking about digital consciousness and how you manage and maintain your digital consciousness. I really wanted to touch on that, so we'll touch on that in 1 minute. Are you struggling to make consistent, valuable content for yourself? Do you want to have an efficient and effective way to create content that attracts the people that you want to connect with in life, the people you want to build relationships with in business? Do you want to be the go-to authority at what you do, at what you're great at? Would it be helpful for you if you had a platform that connects you to incredible people in your industry? The kind of platform that gets you leads and lands you clients without you having to beat down anybody's door or blow up anybody's inbox. Whether you're already creating content or you're desiring to start and it's something that's been kind of burning inside of you for a while, I urge you and encourage you to check out the Pro Podcaster Academy. Get started right now. Join the waitlist at robzwentz.com.
Hi, my name is Jose Escobar, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Connected Leaders Academy. We're a growing tribe, a community of entrepreneurs all over the world globally. If you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to grow personally and professionally, scale your influence, develop your skill sets, move the needle in your business, more clients, more money, more profit, the bottom line, and of course, grow your circle and your network like never before, join the Connected Leaders Academy today. Check me out on Instagram and on Facebook, the @ JAESCO25. We look forward to having you join us. Take care.
Alan, loving this conversation, man. And we were talking about confidence and how to build your confidence. And I think one of the biggest things involved in that is your digital consciousness, how to keep control of what's happening to you in the digital world. What does that look like for you? How do you maintain that so well?
So the biggest distraction, I think, for all of us in the 21st century, and it's becoming more and more and more prolific, is our devices. Mm-hmm. So my girlfriend and I, we live in a smart home, and we have, I think, 30 devices between the two of us, which is wild. And if you look at the growth rate, you can Google this or ChatGPT it or whatever AI you want to use, which pun intended here. And you can look at how the proliferation of devices has increased. And so Emilia and I, we both work from home. We both run our own companies. We have a company together as well. And we're both what most people would consider workaholics. I don't think so. I think we have a calling, and I think we're in that calling and we're very fulfilled. I mean, a lot of people, I say I haven't taken a full day off in 10 years. One time I was on an interview with a woman named Deborah, and she said, "Oh my God, Alan, that's so bad for you." And I said, "No, Deborah, that's bad for you." Now, it doesn't mean I work 12-hour days every day, okay? Sometimes it's 1 hour, sometimes it's 15 hours.
Yeah.
But I haven't taken a full day off since my car accident. I love what I do. And some days it's atrocious. But I do want to build every day. My point of this is I can't sustain the rate at which I am productive. Right now, my average coaching, training, and podcasting is over 50 per week. And those are hours each usually, unless it's a really short interview, which is rare. And so I realized I couldn't sustain it. I'm not going to be able to do this if I don't protect my consciousness. And so what I mean by that is digital hygiene. So if you go into someone's car and you see it completely a disaster, you know what's going on in their consciousness. They're most likely a mess. And everyone's, got their area. For us, our basement's a mess, but like the rest of the house is very well kept. So I'm not judging. But if I were to look at your phone right now, everyone out there, I have one screen and there's not a single badge notification. And if you scroll to the right, there's all the apps, but there's only one screen. There's no screen to the left, nothing there. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I don't allow, and I have 2 people that can call me. And again, I know if you have kids, like, don't villainize me for this. I protect my focus.
What do you mean you have 2 people who can call you? How are you controlling that?
Yeah, so there's something called emergency bypass. And again, I don't have an Android. I have an iPhone, so I don't know how to do this on the Android. But my girlfriend, Emilia, future wife, and my business partner, Kevin, they both can call me and it will ring. But if you were to call me, Rob, it wouldn't ring. It would like if you left a voicemail, it would show a badge notification saying, "Hey, you have a new voicemail," but it wouldn't ring. Meaning nothing's going to interrupt me during flow. And if you study peak performance, and again, I nerd out about this stuff, neuroscience, psychology, physiology, peak performance, flow is the ultimate productivity cheat code. You're 5 times more productive. I mean, you can look up all this. Yeah. We're in flow. I had to run to the bathroom during the break there, but you and I are in flow. We're doing it. And hopefully everyone else is mirroring us in flow, listening or watching. And that's what we want to create. And if you're too overwhelmed, you can't reach flow. If you're in the comfort zone too much, you can't reach flow. You need to have the challenge skills sweet spot is what it's referred to. You have to be enough in a challenge where you're engaged, but not so much a challenge that you're freaking out. So right now I'm in flow, and that's great, and that's why time is disappearing. Apparently we have 4 minutes until, and again, we can keep going if you want. My next meeting, Kevin gets it. Kevin understands, and he can see my calendar. But ultimately, digital consciousness is, are you constantly being interrupted? Because way back in the day, I was born in 88, so I was in the come up of computers. Mm-hmm. And we had a landline. You had to call someone or you had to go to their house. I literally would show up to my neighbor's house. "Hey, can Mark come out and play?" That's not the way it works anymore. Now we have TikTok and Snapchat and Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn and blah, 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 blah. So we're all losing our fucking minds, to be completely honest, and myself included. So how do you leverage the benefits of these things? Because you and I are on the internet right now. You're in Pennsylvania. I'm in Massachusetts. We couldn't do what we do. I couldn't run a global virtual business with a 17-person team working from home. This was never possible before this century. This is awesome. My car drives itself, right? Supervisor mode. But so that's great. Technology is great. I'm all for it. I'm a technology guy, computer engineer. I love it. However, we will lose our minds if we're not careful. We need to stay the master and not allow these things to ruin our lives. And whether that's pornography or all these things, like all my clients, we protect your consciousness. What comes in here dictates what you say, think, feel, do, and believe, and that dictates the direction of your life. And I really do. I work really hard to protect my consciousness.
I love it, man. It's so important, and it's really using technology and not letting it use you. And it can be really hard to have one do the other, because while you're using it, it's trying to use you constantly. It's constantly trying to get your attention. And it's entertaining too. So, I have a 10-year-old son. I wrestle with this. He loves Fortnite and video games, and I like them too. So we'll play, and I'm like, I gotta lead him in this. I can't I can't go down this path with him. You know what I mean? So it's a constant balance, and you're right. You will lose your mind, and you'll lose what's good in life too. You're gonna lose real good communication, real good connections. And I love. Podcasting is amazing. This is amazing. I can talk to you and have a powerful conversation, and we're in two totally separate places. But at the same time, if I want real, true connection with people, and I used to tell myself that over Zoom, I can have really close relationships with people, and I can have good relationships with people over Zoom, but it's just not the same. It's just not, for me at least. Other people, maybe they still can build those relationships, but it's not quite the same. And I think I have to, you have to protect that. And for myself to, just in general, when it comes to your phone and when it comes to devices, most of the stuff you don't need, and if you don't use it anymore, you don't miss it. I don't miss the things that I delete, that I forget about. You forget about them in a day, and it's like, I thought I was going to die without watching YouTube every split second that I had free. It's not the case.
No,
I'm
your
fine.
life will get better, not worse. I think there's a book called Essentialism by Gregory McKeown. It's actually behind me. It's one of my favorite books, not because Gregory McKeown's so great, nothing against him. It's just the concept is so powerful. And essentialism is get rid of anything superfluous, persons, places, things, and ideas. I was everything for everyone. I brought my high school friends to college. I brought my college friends to corporate. I made like 30 grand one year with referral bonuses from bringing all my people to Cognex. And I just realized that that's a quick way to lose your mind. Is I'll never forget this. There was someone who came up to me, I'll keep it anonymous, and said, "You are the most popular kid on this campus." And I remember, and it's not a big school. It was like, I don't know, 5,000 students or something. And I remember thinking, that's awesome. But now, looking back, that wasn't awesome. I was at every fraternity. I was at every club. I was at every barbecue. I was everything for everyone. And I really was losing my mind. It was not good. A lot of it was shallow. And it's not like I was a bad guy. I wasn't a bad guy. I wanted to help people. I loved people. But I was losing myself amongst all of the chameleoning I was doing. And I now realize in hindsight, a lot of that was abandonment stuff from my stepdad and losing my dad when I was 2 and that kind of thing.
The chameleoning.
The chameleoning, yeah, exactly. And then I was in sales, and that's what you do in sales. So you don't realize that you can lose yourself very quickly when you are around too many people too often.
Recognizing the gift and the curse in everything, because there is such a gift in being a chameleon. Same here, man. I can blend into any environment and connect with people. I have a unique gift of connecting with people, and I recognize that when I that can get out of control, where I people please and I chameleon. And my parents are divorced, and I felt like I had to be somebody to both sides of the family, and I had to bend who I was to make sure people were okay with me, and that wrecked me for a long time. But now I recognize what a gift if I use it to my advantage and I use it to help myself and other people. it's amazing that I can connect with anybody. What a skill to have, but it'll also destroy me if I let it destroy me. So it's learning that balance.
It using you versus you using it. Now it's a tool that you can pull out, but but not lose yourself. Whereas before it was you doing it on autopilot. And I think that's ultimately the personal growth journey for all of us, right? Is, oh, okay, so I am really brilliant in science and mathematics, and that makes me really hard to be in a relationship with because I'm hyper rational. I remember Kev saying, dude, it's not that everyone else is irrational, it's that you're hyper rational. I was like, oh, he said, you are the issue. playfully, obviously. But it's true. And so it's awesome to be hyper rational. I've reverse engineered the next 50 years of my life, and I know that it'll be statistically the highest probability of statistical success. And that's the truth, right? I'm optimizing every second of every day. But I'm also, if you're not a super achiever, you're going to hate being my friend. So it's just you're absolutely right. Every upside has a downside. Every strength comes with a weakness. Oh, self-belief, huge strength. Okay. Arrogance, weakness. Humility, great. Okay, but do you believe in yourself? Right? Are you really
letting somebody walk all over you?
Yeah, exactly. And so every strength comes with a weakness. Every weakness comes with a strength. And just like technology, internally and externally, I'm a podcaster, so that's great. That comes with a strength. But now I'm a public figure, so I have to make sure that I'm branding myself a certain way, but yet I want to stay me, and I evolve, so my brand evolves. But I see how everything is just a constant spectrum of expansion and refocus, and I think that that's why life is so difficult, is every time you think you have it figured out, you realize you're not quite there yet, and it's an infinite game. It's a mountain that gets higher as you climb it, and I'm only 36, but if I look back at Alan 3.2 or Alan 2.6, it is alarming, and it should be, because at Alan 4.0, I'm going to look back at this interview and go, wow, that was hot garbage.
Man, you are an engineer. That's how engineers think. They talk about their life in points. I know people who do that. It's the Jack 2.0 and stuff. That's really funny. So I have to wait to wrap this thing up. But overarching theme I can hear in this episode, it keeps coming up to me in this. The book of Ecclesiastes, which King Solomon wrote. It's one of the books in the Bible. In the book of Ecclesiastes, the whole point of the book is life is meaningless, and that we ascribe meaning to life. And it's interesting that life, and it's true, man. We ascribe what has meaning and what that meaning is. Everything is kind of just there for us to put meaning to. And that's what we do as people, is we put meaning to things. And so things mean what we want them to mean, or that we unknowingly give them meaning for. So I think it's the intentionality, right? It's the awareness of, okay, here's who I am. Here's what this is. Earlier in life, when you don't know what you're doing and you're unaware, things get meaning because of things that happen. But as you get older and you become aware of this, you have control. As long as you take the self-discipline route and you have integrity, you give meaning to things, and you don't give away that meaning to circumstances. And
that was well said, and I'm sorry to interrupt you. The very last thing I'll share, I know we got to jump out of here, and it's really cool to see your radio background come out, because I'm a podcaster, started podcasting almost 8 years ago now, and it's so clear that you were radio first, because you'll jump in and do a little segment and stuff. It's fascinating. I've been on a couple radio shows, but this felt more like a radio show than a podcast, in the best way.
I hope, yeah, so that's in a good way. Thanks.
It's in a good way. It is. And the last thing I'll share too is this idea of what's within your control and personal responsibility, because what you're saying there is basically nothing has any meaning except the meaning we give it. And the meaning we're giving it is usually unconscious. And so we had a podcast called the Hyper Conscious Podcast. Change the way you think, change the way you act, change the way you live. And that was before we rebranded to Next Level University. But really what it means, if you Google it, is acutely aware. And it's the opposite of autopilot. It's, okay, what is the meaning I've assigned to this? And what does that mean for me in my life? And I think there's 3 things we all have to learn, which is other people, ourselves, and the world, how it works and why it works that way. Otherwise, we're like a self-driving Tesla that thinks there's a road when really it's a cliff, and we just keep driving off a cliff and then blaming the world. And I know we've all been there. That's the victim mentality, right? So it is your responsibility to captain your own life. And it wasn't my fault my dad died. It wasn't my fault my stepdad left. It wasn't my fault some of those things. But it is my responsibility to figure out how to make a great life out of that. And I think that when you blame things outside of yourself, which I've done, and or escape into substances of drugs or alcohol, which I've also done.
Same.
You really give away your power. You give away your responsibility, and therefore you feel better in the moment, but you also give away your power. And I think that podcasts like this, to get unstuck, you have to take personal responsibility for your own bigger, better, brighter future. And some people do so well at that they actually take responsibility for the world's bigger, better, brighter future, the humanity's, right? And so start with you, and then let that ripple sort of outward. And that's changed my life and gotten me unstuck. And I'm way more fulfilled than I used to be. I'm significantly more successful too, but way more fulfilled. I mean, the fulfillment spectrum, just if I was a 2, I'm the most fulfilled I've ever been by far. And there's a few things on this journey that have been beyond my wildest dreams, which is my beautiful girlfriend, Emilia, the relationship we have. I mean, I always believed in myself in business, but I never believed this was possible. So when you work on yourself, you're going to be pleasantly surprised with what can happen.
Amazing, brother. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Alan, wonderful talking to you. If people want to connect with you, they can DM you on Instagram. They can find you at A Lazarus with an O 88. Make sure you connect with Alan, get to know him. And if you want to become, like I said earlier, the authority in your space and launch your platform, check out robzwentz.com. Good stuff, man. Glad I had a chance to meet you, and glad we're connected. Anything you want to leave the audience with before we sign off?
You have a bigger, better, brighter future on the other side of personal responsibility. And thank you so much for having me. I said I'd end in gratitude. Thank you. I appreciate it. This is awesome.
Absolutely. Another true testimony of breakthrough. Until next time, this is the Unstuck Movement.